100, 200, 300. Where should I go on vacation this summer? Montenegro, Greece, Italy. Oh, hey, didn't see you there. Welcome back to Whiteboard Finance. My name is Marco and I'm here to help you master your money and build your wealth. In this video, I'm going to show you 5 tips on how to negotiate a higher salary, whether it's with a company that you're applying for at a new company or it's at the company that you're currently at, okay? So the first thing I like to do, because this actually gives managers a corporate, I don't want to say a word that's going to get me demonetized, but it gets them corporately aroused, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a brag book, and this is my actual brag book. So I'm going to kind of come closer to the camera here. I don't know if you can see this because the lighting's kind of bright, but essentially what a brag book allows you to do is it allows you to show your value and actually have evidence for the value that you think you bring. So for example, in my brag book, I had a table of contents showing that I'm kind of, somewhat organized person. And what I did was I started with like a resume, and then I had testimonials of all the people that I've worked with or for. And then I had different goals that I had. So this was when I worked in commercial real estate. I had a certain leasing goal on amount of square feet I had to lease up in our properties. I achieved 109% of that goal. The commissions that I made and the total money that I made the company that I worked for based on my leasing efforts. Commissions continued. Emails from bonuses of reaching these commissions. Different things that I worked on in terms of like marketing. This was actually me in Crane's Cleveland, believe it or not. So if you guys read Crane's Business, it's a great publication. If you can't afford it, go to your local library. They most likely have it. Just basically showing that like Marco is legit, right? Different committees I've been on, all that stuff. So with all that being said, the brag book, again, is not just going into your boss's office or the hiring manager's office and saying, hey, I'm worth $1 bajillion because I did X, Y, and Z. Just trust me, I really did it, believe me. No, that's actually talking about what you did and also showing evidence. So it brings credibility to you and your achievements. So that's the first one. The second one is knowing your worth, or kind of like market research, if you will. So I'll just say know worth and then market research. So this is important. So if you want to make a layman analogy or analogy that everyone can understand, it's like when you're going to buy a car. Would you go to a dealership without researching that car and knowing everything about it and what it's going for in the marketplace? Absolutely not. So why would you go into a salary negotiation or asking for a pay raise without knowing what the position you're either applying for or work at currently is worth? You wouldn't do that. So I have 3 resources for you where you can actually understand exactly what you're worth. So I'm actually going to erase this just so I have more real estate on the whiteboard. The first resource of market research or knowing what you should be getting paid is LinkedIn. And that's not LinkedIn from a marketing or networking perspective. It's linkedin.com/salary. Okay, so this is a very powerful tool. LinkedIn actually came out with this, I want to say a couple years ago, but they're starting to refine it, and more people are actually submitting what their salaries are at the different companies that they work at. So if you go onto linkedin.com/salary and type in nurse practitioner, for example, you can search by the entire United States, you can search by a certain city, you can search by a certain sub-market, and it'll tell you the average pay for a nurse practitioner in that area. And you don't have to search nurse practitioner, that's just an example. But ultimately, it will give you an idea of what you should be getting paid, especially at the company that you work for. So you can get really micro or macro with this, depending on whether you want to stay in the city that you're living in, or if you see that nurse practitioners are making twice as much in California, maybe you're going to move from the place you're currently at and move to California. Secondly, this is my second favorite. Actually, it's really my favorite, but LinkedIn is just a little bit easier to use, and this is Glassdoor. Glassdoor.com not only has salary reviews, but they also have actual reviews of the company, okay? So if you're looking to work for XYZ Corporation, you would go onto Glassdoor.com, type in XYZ Corp, see what all the widget spinners are making, I'm just making stuff up, all the widget spinners are working at XYZ Corp, how much they're making. So you see that the widget spinner is making 50 grand a year and you're getting paid 47. Maybe next time you go into a talk with your boss on your annual or quarterly or semi-annually review, you can put that up and say, hey, I see here that the average widget spinner is making 50 grand. Why am I making 47? And you can negotiate from there. And then finally, the third resource that I like are actually recruiters or headhunters. So one of my best friends is a recruiter or a headhunter, and if you can read my hieroglyphics, that's what that says, recruiters. Ultimately, these are people that do executive search or place, high-level executives in certain corporations. So ultimately, if you reach out to recruiters in your local area that work in your industry specifically, they have their finger on the pulse of the market and they can tell you exactly what your position is worth, okay? So that's another great resource. So that was number 2. Going on to number 3 of how to actually negotiate a higher salary is that you need to be specific, okay? Be specific. So whether you want to negotiate a higher salary or more vacation time or whatever you want to do, you need to be very specific in what you're looking for, okay? So when your boss or the hiring manager asks you what are your salary expectations, you do not give a range, okay? You need to be very specific. So if you're looking to make 68, you don't say, oh, I can do 65 to 68 or 68 to 70, whatever. You want to be able to get paid what you're worth. So if you give a range, that kind of makes you look like you're unsure of yourself. It's kind of like the guy that goes up to the bar and the bartender asks him, what do you want to drink? And he's with all his friends and he's kind of like, well, do you have a, it's kind of like, dude, how do you not know what you want to drink? Okay, like, let's go here. So it makes you look unconfident, it makes you look unsure of yourself, and it makes you look like you don't know what you're doing or what you want. The second part of number 3 is actually knowing these two numbers. It's kind of like going into a car deal. Again, I'll use that analogy. So say, for example, you see a car on the lot for 15 grand and you know that you want to get it for 13, but you'll actually buy it for 14. This is kind of a similar negotiation tactic. So you have your ideal number. So say, you do want to make that, 68 grand or whatever the example was, and then you have your settle number. Okay, so if you're currently making 64 and you're asking for 68 and say they come back at, 66, it's still better something than nothing, okay? It's kind of like knowing what your ideal number is and what your settling number is in terms of, what you'll ultimately settle for. So number 4, in terms of negotiating a higher salary, I think this is the most important in terms of business, just anything in business. It's all about leverage, okay? But you need to be very careful with leverage and how you use it, especially in the example that I'm going to give, especially if you're already working at a company, or actually even if you're going to apply for a new position. Basically, the leverage that I'm talking about is that you kind of want to hint, and this should be true, don't literally just lie, but you want to hint to the hiring manager or to your manager that has control of your salary that you have multiple opportunities out there, okay? So say, for example, you're applying for the widget spinner job and you just finished up with the interview and you knocked it out the park. You kind of want to let the hiring manager know that, hey, I do have a couple other offers from XYZ Corp, for other widget spinner positions, at different companies, for example. So that way it creates kind of like a scarcity mindset. So if you know all these like online gurus and these people that run these sales, oh, there's only 3 courses available, get in now before they're gone. It creates that scarcity mindset because if the hiring manager really likes you, obviously they're going to think, okay, Marco is going to go take the other widget spinner position at, ABC Corp instead of XYZ Corp, for example. So ultimately, you want to be able to use this sparingly and just kind of hint at it. You don't want to make it obvious, because if you're asking for a raise, or even if you are applying for a new position, you don't want to come off as someone who's like, yeah, I don't need my job. I have another widget spinner position waiting for me, okay? So ultimately, this can kind of create some discontent in terms of the company that you're already working with. And they're kind of like, screw Marco. He's, let him take that other widget spinner position. I'll hire someone straight out of widget spinner university and pay him, twice as less. So the widget spinner was a terrible analogy, but hopefully you're just laughing at it by now at this point. So ultimately, you see what I'm saying there. Leverage is important, especially kind of creating that scarcity mindset, but it's kind of like seasoning on a steak, okay? Just use a little bit. Let the meat speak for itself because you already showed them the brag book, right? So number 5, this one, okay, so this goes without saying. This is everything in life. However, it's very important. So you need to be confident, okay? So when you come into this negotiation, you need to be confident because you've already proven yourself with the brag book. You've already talked about, hey, I may have other opportunities at ABC Corp, you know, for other widget spinner positions. You know, you've created all that good rapport, and you need to be confident because if you don't present that number, if you're unsure of yourself, that's going to kind of come back to you as the guy that doesn't know what he wants to drink at the bar. It's kind of like, come on, dude, let's figure this out. So if you're confident in your abilities, this should come through naturally. You don't have to overcompensate for it. It's like the little guy that buys the big truck, you know? Like, dude, we get it, you know? So you don't need to do that. You need to be firm but fair, and you need to expect the same from them. So obviously, you know, when you're presenting this number, you've already justified your position. So you need to be firm and fair. So maybe you don't get your ideal number that we talked about, that's 68 grand, but you're still gonna get bumped up from 64 grand to 66. So at the end of the day, it's still a win-win. And then your salary just builds on top of the new salary, the 66 grand. So at the end of the day, you gotta be confident, whether it's sports, whether it's talking to a girl at the bar, whether it's, you know, just working at work, you need to be competent and confident, and that will come through, especially if you know what you're talking about and doing. So I hope these 5 tips were gonna work for you. It's nice to see everybody making more money. At the end of the day, the ultimate message from this channel is that, you know, if you need to negotiate for a higher salary and you truly do enjoy working at a W-2 job, that's great. But, you know, my underlying thesis is that I'm an entrepreneur. I've always been very entrepreneurial. All these games kind of go away when you work for yourself. So I do hope that this video gave you value, and if you know someone that's in the corporate world or wants to climb the corporate ladder, this video will definitely help them. If you're someone who wants to start your own job and create your own company, none of this stuff really matters at the end of the day. Or if you're a hiring manager, maybe you can spot someone using these techniques on you. So I hope you guys got value out of this video. These videos take me a long time to make, produce, edit, and do all that stuff. The least you guys can do is just please give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and share the video with one friend or on social media. It'll really help me a lot. Thank you so much, and as always, have a prosperous day.